Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to today's event on AP Automation and Dynamics AX. We'll be looking at new data on AX customer views and experiences. I'm Jason Gumpert from msdynamicsworld.com. I'll be hosting today's event. So welcome everyone, and we will be sharing some brand new findings from a recent poll on Dynamics AX and other ERP users. We'll also be talking to two guests to get their views on our findings, and we'll be hearing more from our guests, our panelists, about their company solutions a little bit later on. We'll also be taking your questions in the audience throughout. We'd love to hear your thoughts on some of the findings that we share. So what do we have in store today? So just to set things up a little bit better, let's review the overall agenda. We're going to do some introductions here. We do want to get your feedback as well. You see the Q&A block to the right of the main presentation window. That's where you can feel free to enter your questions or thoughts at any point during the session. We'll be making at least two points at which we'll stop and take questions during the event. We'll do some introductions here in just a moment, and then after that we'll head straight into a discussion of the survey results, what they say about the larger Dynamics AX and ERP communities, how people are approaching the management of accounts payable and invoices. Then we'll be setting aside time in the second half to have our panelists each take a few minutes to speak more about their own company's services and solutions, and we'll take more questions at the end. So it should be a fun hour. Let's get started. I want to now introduce my two guests today, our panel, Diana Egan and Doug Bertram. Diana, let me start with you and just say welcome and have you just take a moment to introduce yourself to the audience. And I'm just going to take you off of mute here. Okay, your line should be open.
Thank you. Hi, thanks, Jason. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where everyone's at today. Thanks for having me. As Jason mentioned, my name is Diana Egan. I work for a worldwide leader in document process automation as a sales director for Esker US and TermSync. That's an Esker company as well. For the past 20 years, my experience has been providing software solutions that complement an organization's current IT environment while improving productivity and efficiency and certainly environmental impact. So I'm looking forward to hearing everyone's questions today and talking a bit about automation.
All right, great, welcome. And also we are joined by Doug Bertram of Metafile. Doug, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thanks, Jason. I'm happy to be here and kind of listen to the survey results and maybe provide some guidance or some interject some thoughts. I'm a graduate of the University of Minnesota Carlson School, currently in a position of regional manager for Metafile Information Systems, helping companies automate their business processes with our MetaViewer solution. I've got about 20 years experience in the document management space and just about 10 years with Metafile.
All right, wonderful. Well, welcome to you too. So yeah, to everyone in the audience, in case you have scenarios or questions that you'd like some input on, we've got two really great experts who have seen a lot of companies and a lot of challenges that people have faced over time. So please don't hold back on sharing your questions or experiences. Okay, so we're going to dive into the survey now. We're going to look at some of the findings and I'm going to ask a few questions. Just to give you a little bit of a general sense of what we were aiming for and why we ran this research, why we're even doing this event today. It's part of our general approach at MS Dynamics where we want to understand, about the maturity of our readers' capabilities, especially customers, when it comes to different kinds of business processes and different kind of technical capabilities. AP automation is, of course, one of those. We think a lot about that, and not just the investments people are making in their ERP solutions like AX, but also how they're choosing to extend it, how they're investing in people, how they're investing in technology. AP and invoice is such a key challenge that companies face, and it's an area where businesses, organizations can potentially find ways to find ways to optimize There's technology implications, business process, operational challenges, and of course there's financial impact potentially at stake. So obviously, it's a key area that we like to keep an eye on. We also wanted to understand the level of success that Dynamics AX customers are having with AP and invoice management technology, and how well they're streamlining their business processes today and what their plans are for the future. So a little bit more background on the survey. We ran it in March 2016, so it's very recent data. We had 72 valid responses from Dynamics ERP users. That included AX, GP, and NAV. We're going to primarily be looking at the results filtered down to the AX result set today. And just to look at sort of what some of that distribution was generally, we had companies from a range of sizes, and we also asked just to get a general sense of the kind of AP invoice volume they're processing, and you can see a good range there as well. Obviously, the largest chunk coming in at the sort of under 500, but quite a few at 500 to 2,000, and even 2,000 to 5,000 were some of the participants in the event. So I just wanted to give you a little background there before we dive into some of the more specific results. So yeah, let's do that here. When it came to the AX respondents, we did ask sort of how large their AP staffs were, and I think this is sort of reflective of maybe the range of company sizes that we saw. A lot of different numbers of people within organizations handling AP, and again, it's really more of just a point of information that I want to bring up as we kind of move ahead here. So, what types of invoice formats are people receiving? Paper obviously it remains the most common, almost 90%. This was sort of a multi-select question, so people identified all the kinds of formats that they're receiving today. Almost 90% of companies still receive paper invoices in the AX world, and it seems like that's pretty much unavoidable for many companies. And the first question I wanted to throw to our panelists, when you're trying to plan for better efficiency, better process automation, if you're a manager in a finance department, you're aware, the paper invoicing is still a factor that your team is dealing with. Are there certain constraints or certain expenses that that companies should expect if they're going to be dealing with paper in their day-to-day efforts? And I wanted to sort of set things up with that question. And Diana, why don't I start this one with you? When it comes to paper, what are some of the basic expectations that companies should be dealing with today, and maybe what should they be thinking about for the future?
Yeah, sure, Jason. I mean, just as you said, although AP, rapidly shifting to a more strategic and value-based business function, certainly over the last few years, just as the results indicate, the culture of traditional paper-based invoice processing and management it's still very alive and well in many AP departments. Most organizations have some kind of electronic tool for automating some aspects of AP and other business process, such as AX and other business applications. And while it's great for streamlining the process of, say, cutting checks and making payments, there's so many paper-based numerous pain points, which it just unfortunately doesn't address. Actually, in ERPs in general, not just AX, they just don't even take in consideration the documents that, need to be manually received and entered and then sent to all the different receivers. So from a supplier standpoint, the more partners and distributors an organization has, the more paper that's going to be printed and retrieved and faxed and mailed and photocopied and archived, and making this process longer for finance and certainly more error-prone. So in terms of, what managers in finance should be aware of when it comes to paper, well, certainly your staff is dedicating just too much time manually sorting and handling paper invoices. For many of you, there's transportation, physical archiving expenses. There's, trouble accurately capturing the data regardless of the invoice format. There's low visibility of processing and approval status from, the minute that piece of paper, that invoice comes into your organization. You're going to have very limited analytics, reporting, very difficult audit trail capabilities. Certainly I hear day in and day out, frustrations and trying to connect accounting and procurement or purchasing functions. You're going to have difficulty taking advantage of early pay discounts, and then certainly poor oversight of spend with both PO and non-PO based suppliers, the more paper that you have.
All right, so quite a list of potential downsides or things to be aware of. I mean, Doug, any others you would add from your experience, or other factors that you think companies either should be thinking about or are already thinking about when they're seeing a large chunk of their invoices coming in paper format?
Sure. Yeah. I guess the real big impetus of where people are looking for us for some help is really just managing all that paper and shuffling it around. And if you got remote facilities, you're FedExing documents around, and you're really losing that control. So really the key is to capture things as soon as they come into the organization, and then you can control where they're at, and so giving some of that control back to AP without them having to hunt around for it and worry that it's getting lost or photocopied. Now you got double documents out there. That's a big pain point as well. So really just bringing some management to that, and with systems like Medivure to be able to really control how everything flows through the organization. And your slide here too about the invoice formats. We are seeing a very, very big rise in that email. A number of years ago, the number that came in electronic and email formats was far less, and that was mostly because people weren't really asking their vendors for that. And if you didn't have a process to deal with it, you probably didn't want them in that format. And we're really seeing that on the rise, and that really helps eliminate some of the challenges of all that paper and the photocopying and the scanning and all that kind of stuff. So having systems watch email boxes, and so I think over time here you're going to see that email bar surpass the paper as more people automate their systems, and then nobody has to open up mail or scan anything in and those types of things. So I guess that's what I would add.
And maybe I can put this to both of you, but when it comes to email versus other kinds of electronic communication, it sounds like, Doug, you believe that email is probably the easiest way to move away from paper at this point. Is that fair to say?
Well, yeah, I would say it is easy because a lot of the vendors, their financial systems have the ability to set you up and say, hey, I want if you tell your vendor that you want your invoices emailed to you, it's very easy for them to set a lot of the newer financial systems like AX and the other ones that your vendors may have. They can set that up, and it really automates it. So they have all the gain by setting their system up to email because they don't have to print it and they don't have to stuff it in an envelope and wait for it to mail to you. So that's really easy for vendors to adapt to that. And on your slide there, certainly fax, that can be automated as well. But EDI and electronic, really, that kind of happens at a much higher level. And that's good as well, but then there's really not a whole lot of documents exchanged there. That's just their ERP talking to your ERP. So I guess that's what I would add.
Diana, anything else you would add on that question?
Yeah, I would also add that, despite how the document is coming into your organization, frankly, a good automation organization isn't going to care, and nor should you, because even if it comes in through fax, even if it comes in through paper, it should be delivered to you in an electronic format with an automation system that takes the document. So, unless you're, Walmart and you can only work with suppliers and, who are going to post those invoices into a supplier portal, or who are all going to email to you. I mean, that's the dream state, right? And certainly it's going in the direction of email. It may never happen for you, especially if your suppliers are smaller organizations, or you buy from small organizations. So I think the type of invoice format really should almost be a non-topic or certainly should not be any sort of game changer, because if you're going to look at automation, it shouldn't matter how the invoice comes in. It should be readily able to take it in any format and deliver it to you electronically.
Okay, excellent. Moving on to another point here, we wanted to give an idea of the differences between AX respondents and all respondents in our survey on the question of how quickly a single invoice is processed. And in reviewing some of these results, it suggests, or I wondered if there's perhaps more going on than within any one of these columns, like, for example, the 1 to 5 day range. That can still suggest a big variation in processing time, 1 day response versus a 5 day response, for example. So the question here I wanted to ask, do you find that people think about the time it takes when people are talking about the time it takes to process an invoice, do you think they're talking about or taking into account any wasted time when invoices are perhaps not at the right starting point, or any other sort of ways that people should be or may not be thinking about the time that they're really spending right now? And Diana, I wanted to open this one up to you.
Sure. Well, from all I hear is generally they're not thinking about it until it becomes a big bottleneck, and they're forced to think about it. I think some organizations are open to moving toward a centralized process, while others are not. The ones who are not open to it don't want to add additional work to AP's job by receiving and routing the invoices. I certainly think it's an opportunity where they need to consider the bigger picture. What impact are the invoices going to have on the buyer? What is that going to have towards the organization? Weigh those benefits against adding steps in the process for AP, but gaining significant amount of visibility. I think for AX in particular, I think AX does a wonderful job of PO-based invoices, and I think that many can be managed and processed very quickly. I think where we tend to see challenges and where we try to kind of fill in those gaps for AX users are the non-PO'd based invoices, ones that need multiple levels of approval workflow, and need to make sure that all of the approver notes and such are all included. I know Esker, does that on a day in and day out basis in our solution, and I think that when you look at incorporating that type of workflow management and approval management, certainly being able to process something in as simple or as easily in less than 5 days is certainly a goal to work towards.
Mm-hmm. Doug, anything to add there? I hear from Diana that the challenges increase as you try to build out a more meaningful workflow. Anything else you would add?
Yeah, I'd say on the chart here, the 1 to 5, the bigger spikes at 1 to 5. That's actually a good thing. That means people are processing things in a timely manner. The 6 to 10 and the 21 to 30 spikes. Generally, those are, kind of as Diane said, that routing around for approvals and making sure everybody that needs to see it sees it and can properly assign the right dimensions and those types of things to the invoices. So if you can get a better handle on that, it's very easy to take those 21 to 30 days with a system like MetaViewer to control that visibility and being able to immediately get it in the hands of that person, and then have that system analyzing and sending automated reminders to that person that, hey, you've been sitting on this for 2 days. You need to process it, and let the system take care of that. And so it's not a lot of burden on the AP department to increase, take some more of those in that 21 to 30 day bubble and move them down closer to that 1 to 5 day bubble. So I think that's a real big key there. The other system in a workflow system that can help that is not only those notifications, but the ability to analyze the documents themselves and then do some processing or pulling back some additional information to display with that document to help that person make that decision faster, automatically linking other related documents to that transaction so that at a click of a button you can see the purchase order or the W-9 or the packing slip or something like that. That can actually help bring that 21 to 30-day bar down to that 1 to 5 day range.
And when you are a company that thinks you're in the 21 to 30-day range or even longer, I mean, what other risks do you see that typically creep into the process at that point?
I would say it's just really that loss of control. I mean, if you think somebody has it, but they don't, they lost it or whatever, you're losing precious days because you think they have it and they don't. But with a system that gives you that control and you capture those documents as soon as they come into the organization, you can see where it's at. So even though it's in somebody else's queue, you can have the proper displays on your homepage that say, okay, these are where those are at, and so there is no if it sits for 5 days, 10 days, and then you realize that they don't have it, now you've already just wasted that 5 to 10 days.
Right, makes sense. And yeah, I'd also throw this one to the audience. I'd like to understand, how you faced some of these challenges, or how you've either used AX or looked beyond AX to try to manage process and bring down that particular metric. But moving on, one of the more interesting questions I thought in the survey we asked what some of the biggest challenges are in handling the AP process in more particular detail. And for people who are using AX, there's a clear winner in terms of the timely posting of month-end accruals, but it was followed fairly closely by invoice processing and status of invoices and purchase orders. So question here, this is one of the core, I think, questions for either of you on the panel as solution providers. Do you have any recommendations on how companies can dig into one of these particular challenges? And Diana, let me put this one to you first.
Yeah, sure. Accrual reporting in general at the end of the month is just as the survey results indicate, just a big headache and a big pain that I hear from so many of Esker customers. For PO'd invoices, well, that is fairly simple. When you're handling a PO'd-based invoice, it can be a fairly standard, report. Where we run into issues and where the time and the headache is incurred is when you're talking about, a non-PO'd invoice. That is a huge challenge. It's a lot of manual work, and it takes a lot of time. So, when you're looking at automation, like from Esker, we certainly can create, and something that our customers take advantage of is a accrual report, which is just fantastic because every organization handles accruals differently. That type of automation and that feature can change the filters in that report so it reflects exactly what your organization would need. So it can be accrued automatically via a single report. Obviously, as I mentioned, most customers don't need to accrue PO'd invoices, but if you do, we have that covered because we have all of the PO information, including all of the GL codes and the company codes and so forth. But for non-PO'd invoices, Esker uses a combination of most recently used, considering the last invoice from that supplier and the GL code, as well as a technology that we have called Teach, as well as line item allocation tables to ensure that the accurate accrual reporting happens within escrow automation. So I know organizations who are spending, days of time at the end of each month on accrual reporting for posting at month end. If you look towards automation for reporting, we're now moving from days of compiling that report to minutes, which is a significant savings for most organizations.
All right, and Doug, I put the same question to you. Do you have any recommendations or thoughts for any one particular one of these challenges?
Yeah, I would kind of echo what Diana said on the accrual reports is a pretty big key item there. And a system like Medivere, where we're capturing the document, we're intelligently reading and extracting that data, means as soon as that comes into the organization, all that data is stored in SQL. So it's very easily to report on that, and you get that visibility of where all that data is. So that can really help on that side of things. And then users can actually search by PO or by account codes or any of that information as well, and then export that data to do some analysis and those types of things. When I look at the chart that you've got displayed there, tying to posting, the top 3 items there really, I think, are which are the bigger items. You can kind of accumulate all those together, that posting of the accruals, as Diana had mentioned, and being able to very easily display that information. The next 2 items are really that capturing that document and controlling how it flows and giving you that visibility and control can really help on those second 2 bars there to deliver the documentation to the right person in a timely manner, and it kind of really takes care of itself for those 2 items.
So, one other question I had, I guess, looking at this chart, the thing, and you both touched on it already, but, visibility obviously seems like one of the really overarching themes that's so critical, and that can be improved in many cases. Are there, ways that visibility, is being impacted that maybe managers inside a business aren't even identifying themselves, that when maybe you sit down and work with them, or when your customers deal with it, that they're realizing that there's even things, sort of unknowns for their business in their sort of their current state. Doug, is that something that you've experienced?
Yeah, I think kind of outside out of mind kind of concept that you don't. Until you really realize. I mean, especially when you get to the upper parts of your organizations, your CFOs and those types of things, they don't micromanage the day-to-day, so they just assume everything's processing, everybody knows where everything's at, and I'm pretty certain that there's quite a few people on the lower side, on the AP, AP management kind of side, or the AP clerk side, that things getting lost, or things that they would care not to. Not to admit to, but you shuffle that paper around, it can really get lost in a hurry.
All right, great. And Diana, anything you would add on that?
Yeah, I would fully agree with Doug. I mean, visibility is probably one of the main drivers of automation for escrow customers. Once you have access to a large amount of information that exists, outside of your ERP, you can react to kind of, various conditions that, perhaps, never knew existed. I'm hearing all the time, post-implementation was, accounting managers, saying that, new information allow them to go from this kind of reactive, dealing with issues as they arrive type of state to far more proactive, the ability to use that information gained to, to do everything from, manage vendors from a pricing standpoint to better manage personnel, to deal with, invoicing processing issues, working with suppliers to provide, information in a more kind of efficient manner. I mean, continually improving the process. So I think that visibility is so key, and then in systems like Esker, to have things like dashboards and KPI reports and these types of things. I mean, much like stats are used in, professional sports to analyze, virtually any type of metric for a competitive edge. An AP automation solution should have those similar types of tools to go beyond just what was, paid to provide kind of that instant access to what invoices are in the pipeline and, insights into better, daily tasks and monitor performance and better forecasting and use of cash and all of those types of things.
Yeah, I would like to add something there that I'd like to add something there Diana just said that kind of sparked a thought here too. Is one of the interesting things too when you sit down is and look at people's processes is really consistently doing the same things over and over and adhering to your business rules. So many times you'll start working with a client and so you say, okay, so how do you process invoices? And nobody really knows. So having a solution like MetaViewer to be able to do that, to kind of control that process, and it really helps people think through their process. And instead of saying, why do you do it that way? Well, because we've done it that way for 30 years. It really helps them sit down. Implementing a solution really helps them understand their business process a lot better too. So that can really help a lot of these bubbles here.
All right, interesting point there, yeah. And there's a great question that came up that I want to get to before we move on. So the question, Diana, I'll put this to you first. Our controllers want to better forecast future expenses. Do you see any improvements for controllers to provide better financial forecasts?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's very consistent. I know that IOFM did a recent survey of controllers. And I believe that their number one reason going into 2016 for improvement was improving visibility into cash flow, cash management, developing measures, gain visibility into that overall performance of finance and administration functions as being the priority this year. So absolutely, that type of forecasting is so important. And when you're looking at an automation type of solution, when you can look at that type of data, you can see visibility over spend. You can see spend by category and volume and supplier and accrual reporting and payment KPIs and process efficiencies and where they're happening and where they're not. So you can make those better decisions as a controller certainly for future spend.
All right, excellent. Doug, anything you would add there?
No, I think that's exactly right. I think the concept of capturing all this information and having access to the information, sure, it can be data overload or data, too much data. But if you've designed the system right and you build the right reports, it gives you that visibility and being able to capture the document as soon as it comes into the organization and have all that data and the times that it's taken to flow and all those dimensions being tracked and that type of thing. I think is very key.
And there's sort of a follow-up question here. I mean, are there particular KPIs that you would identify, Doug, in AP or procurement, and can those be used to drive change in the organization?
Sure. In terms of the responsiveness of people to getting things approved, I mean, you have the visibility as to how long it's sitting in various people's queues, so you can kind of manage that. What kind of volumes you can have metrics on your staffing as to what how quickly how many is one of your staffs more efficient than others, and then you can kind of learn from that. And it's okay, what are they doing differently than some of these other folks to maybe raise the bar up for everyone. And then certainly the financial aspects of things, managing your budgets better and those types of things as well.
All right. Diana, anything else you would add?
No, I think he's absolutely correct. I mean, in terms of, very specific KPIs, it's what metrics are important to your organization, right? I mean, then use automation like this, like Esker, you're going to be able to gather information on when something was received, how quickly it routed through a process, how many hands had to touch it per se, or how many eyes had to look at it per se before actually submitting for payment. Where are the inaccuracies? All of these types of things can be gathered when the information is coming in and can be used for particular metrics for your organization and what's important to your business process.
All right. At this point, we want to move on to the next segment of the session, and that's to let both Diana and Doug take a few minutes to speak a little more specifically about their own organizations, their own solutions. And Diana, I'm going to ask you to go first on this. So let me pass control to you. You'll have 10 minutes, and then Doug will also have 10 minutes. So you have presenter control now. You should be able to share your screen. Thanks for the and while you are changing over there, thanks for the questions from the audience so far. Please enter any others, and we should have a few minutes at the end to take those.
And can you see my full screen?
We do. We see the presentation mode.
Fantastic. I'll do my 20 seconds. If you're not familiar with Esker, we have a worldwide presence. We've been in business just over 30 years. We have a very large, very diverse customer base, nearly all verticals, everything from, top Fortune corporations to very small independent businesses doing under 500 invoices a month. As an organization, we process over 40 million documents a month. And we also offer solutions in both cloud-based solutions as well as on-premise solutions. So in general, finance leaders typically look to Esker when they're facing a lot of the challenges kind of we talked about today in the survey, processing delays, reduced accuracy, costs, lack of visibility, just difficulty in getting their arms around the data to make quick and intelligent decisions. There's a lot of benefits to automation. Certainly, as you saw today with some of the survey results, that visibility is a huge one and faster processing, 65%, 100% visibility. These are the types of things that automation can do for you and something that Esker is doing for our customers on a daily basis. Specifically for AX, we view it as a fantastic automation solution to fill in the gaps. I mean, AX is such a great solution. It really is. And there's some really high-performing functionality. But as I mentioned earlier, it doesn't take into account all of the manual information that still has to be entered into AX. So I love automation, AP specifically, as well as purchasing. We do that as well for AX because it fills in a lot of those gaps that are manually entering right now. So automation is going to, again, increase processing speeds by 65%. It's going to improve your data, your entry accuracy. You're going to have an ROI in a very short period of time. It's going to lower your overall purchase-to-pay costs. It's going to improve that visibility like we've talked about. It's going to eliminate some duplicate payments. It's going to support shared service center initiatives if that's the route you want to go with your organization. And certainly, it's going to have the integration that you need to ensure that the information is also found in AX. And then, although workflow happens outside of AX, and that's the ideal for an automation platform, again, it's going to be integrated with Dynamics to ensure that all the information that you're capturing and you're routing for approvals and you're attaching all your ancillary documents and all the information that you need to archive away with the invoice is all going to be together and then archived either in the cloud or it can be put into AX, whatever your organization so chooses. And so since we don't have a lot of time here, really maybe just less than 5 minutes left. I just wanted to jump into a few features at a high level that Esker customers take advantage of. I mentioned earlier those dashboards and key information at a glance. Getting that pulse of what's going on in AP and providing that to your users in real time is so important. Those meaningful analytics, for all levels of AP, your AP specialist, kind of that instant access to their workload, including kind of the number of invoices to approve, the number of invoices out, the number to put on hold, those that have errors, those types of things is important. Visibility into what approvers still have invoices in their waiting queue. Again, all the data in the dashboard can be clicked on, drilled deeper into, so you can start validating invoices. The document manager where your AP specialist would have their view set up however they like, whether you want certain invoices coming in to certain specialists, based on geographic location or vendor amount, it's easily all customizable and can be filtered. You can see here this is a list of this particular, AP specialist invoices to review. And so they would choose, to open a particular invoice. Their validation screen comes on the left. You see all the information that's been automatically extracted from the image. And then, of course, on the right is the original image. With Esker, different invoice formats are easily handled. There's no templates needed. It's not just OCR technology. It's OCR with Esker patented free-form intelligent capture technology embedded into the solution, allowing us to easily deal with content from very diverse invoice types, from multiple transports, like I mentioned, fax, email, and et cetera. It's just a very easy-to-use type of solution. There are also automatic data checks, so you can feel confident in the data extraction. In this example, you're looking at your screen, verifying against your supplier and tax, etc. It identified a balancing consistency, and it would check and capture those types of things. There's matching for PO'd invoices, verifies that the quantity and the price invoice is matched against the open PO'd line items. Again, very smart, intelligent system. For non-PO'd invoices, there's automatic workflow. It's based on all your business approval process with, very easy to use approver access that would automatically be sent to folks. And of course, in our day and age, AP automation wouldn't be as effective if you couldn't provide your approvers, your business approvers, with mobile access. So there's no more excuses for unapproved invoices. They can easily view what needs to be approved, the image, any questions. They can review coding and payment for each line item. They can approve it, they can reject it, they can put it on hold. Executives love this type of ease, and AP loves certainly the turnaround time. And then archiving, it's a wonderful option in the cloud when you need to, pull the invoice later or run reporting for auditors. Normally customers who have AX, they want a link within AX into the record that takes them to the cloud to view the invoice, and that's something that we do all the time. And then, of course, the online supplier portal as I wrap up. And that's purely an option for customers who are looking for an option for their suppliers where they're invited to join the portal to get immediate access to new business. They're set up and running simply just by setting up their password. So suppliers can upload invoices straight from the portal, so the invoices are directly available for verification and processing. And then, company users can see at a glance the part of the invoices that are coming directly from the portal versus what's coming via email, and et cetera. So I would say, there are a lot of fantastic reasons to look at Esker for automation. We automate AP, purchasing, accounts receivable, sales order entry. We kind of run the gamut on procure to pay and order to cash. I chose San Benedetto as an example. because although they're a global company receiving invoices in both Spanish and English that we handle very easily, their volume isn't very large. And I know from looking at the survey results, there were a lot of folks who didn't have large volume, but they just had a lot of errors and no visibility and lots of paper still coming in. And when I say paper, I also mean emails, because even though you're receiving an attached email, it's still a manual process. They were actually printing up the email before entering it into AX. I wanted to show that despite the challenges that you have, the results can be pretty dramatic. They saved a lot of time during data capture and archiving. They saved a lot of physical space from filing away. Of course, they made audits so much easier, less in human error, less investment in hardware. There's just a lot of value that can be found in an automation solution with Esker, and certainly San Benedetto, an international bottler, a manufacturer and bottler of water, was certainly one that took advantage of that. And with that, I think that's my small pitch.
All right. Thank you so much, Diana. And I'm now going to move control over to Doug Bertram so he can share his own desktop and his presentation. So, Doug, you should have control now.
Okay. Here we go.
Yep, we see that.
Excellent. All right. So welcome, everyone. I appreciate being a part of this discussion today and helping you guys understand some of the results of that survey. Just a little bit of company overview. Today I don't have enough time in 10 minutes to really kind of show you the product, but if you have some questions or want to see a one-on-one demonstration of the product, I would encourage you to shoot us an email at info@metafile.com, and we'd certainly be happy to spend a little bit more time with you guys. But really, Metafile as a company, we started in 1979 as a report capture company, and then really kind of grew the whole entire solution over time to really based on the feedback from our clients. We became an imaging system. We developed workflow, the intelligent reading and extracting of data, and those types of things. So really have been around a long, long time. But if I take a look at the entire solution as it relates to the AP automation and kind of what we're talking about here today, everything centers around MetaViewer as this document management, content management, imaging type of solution. And we really, it really is an enterprise-wide solution. So it goes beyond the AP. A lot of companies are really focusing on that AP automation space as a starting point, but a lot of our clients will say, wow, now that I have this up and running, I've got these processes over here. Let's extend the whole procure to pay side and on the requisition, purchase order requisition side, have some workflows around that and some control and visibility there. HR, all the documents associated with that, contracts, all kinds of different order processing, all those kinds of different places that you can really leverage that technology. But if you take that technology kind of in the frame of mind that we were talking about today with the survey and AP automation and interaction with Microsoft Dynamics AX, it really starts by capturing the documents as soon as they come into the organization. So you really get that visibility and those metrics and being able to track everything, whether they be paper or electronic. And kind of going back to our roots of that report capture system, we really focus with our clients to get more and more things from your vendors electronically, because that's really the ideal solution. If your vendors can, even as simple as emailing you an invoice, we can actually set MetaViewer up to watch that email box, automatically pull in the attached document, preventing the paper from ever happening, and more importantly, preserving the textual information that document contains. And it feeds right into the tool that we developed called Invoice Accelerator, which will intelligently read that document like a human can. Basically, we have common words used for the various things that we're trying to extract, and so we start reading that document. When we find it, we grab the value right next to it, and we can copy that text out of that document and paste that into index. We call them index fields within MetaViewer, but ultimately, since we're going to upload that transaction to AX, it eliminates that data entry into MetaViewer or AX. And so really that electronic side is very, very important for efficiencies, because now nobody opens up mail, nobody has to scan anything in, nobody prints anything off. Everything just comes into that email box that MetaViewer is watching. We pull it in, we start processing that document immediately. Now, we also realize it may not be feasible to get everything in that format, so we can work with paper documents as well. Using any kind of scanner or multifunctional copier device, you can scan documents into MetaViewer, but if you do scan a document, it's just a picture. There is no text to extract out of that document. But as you can see by the diagram, if MetaViewer doesn't find any text, it runs it through this extra step, the scanning OCR step. Takes about a second or two for the system to do that. But really what that technology does is it looks at all the dots on the page, all the pixels, if you will, and any dots that are touching each other, it says, oh, this is a 1 or a 6 or a G, and essentially converts that picture back into text, then feeds into that exact same tool, that Invoice Accelerator tool, to intelligently read and extract that data. Once the document's captured and we have all that data, it goes into workflow. Most people think of workflow, they think of routing of a document around from person to person, and that's a big part of what workflow entails, but we actually can, if we can actually do things with a document so people don't have to, that's where you really start to get your efficiency. So in workflow, we also, the data that we extract, we can validate it. We can make sure that everything ties out. We can make calls and talk directly to your AX system to pull back things like default dimensions for a vendor, the payment terms, and from that we can calculate due dates and discount amounts. We can compare the invoice amount. Is this a valid PO? Is the amount of the invoice less than or equal to what's open for the PO? Duplicate checks, all those kinds of checks and balances, the system can do those automatically so people don't have to scrutinize and waste their time doing all those mundane tasks. If everything passes, it continues to flow through the workflows. If it fails, we're going to put that in an exception queue, and then somebody can look as to what was that reason why it failed, and then they can correct that problem and decide what to do with that document. From a workflow routing perspective, we developed what we call our fast track solution, which really helps to implement the solutions a lot faster. That it's kind of a pre-built system, and then we kind of tweak it from there depending on your workflows. But in that fast track solution, two broad workflows that we've created, one dealing with the non-PO invoices and one dealing with the purchase order related invoices. Non-purchase order invoices, they get routed around everybody for the coding of the dimensions and approving the invoices and those types of things. Whereas the PO invoices, most organizations don't really want to route those around for approvals or don't need to. That was the whole purpose you created that purchase order in the beginning. So really in those cases we're doing those validation checks. We're comparing that to what's been received against that purchase order in AX and doing that two-way, three-way kind of matching. Once that's all been rectified, we then upload that transaction to AX with some web services that we created. Retrieval being the third aspect of the solution, that's just giving everybody access to the documents when and where they need them. Big advantage for us is there's no software to load on everybody's workstation. We use a standard internet browser. It's a tool to talk to the MetaViewer solution. Whether you install MetaViewer on your servers in your organization, we have a SAS 70 data center that we can actually host your MetaViewer application. And kind of where we're seeing a kind of a rise is more and more people are starting to host their financial systems. In fact, AX7, the initial release of AX7 is hosted only. So we can actually put MetaViewer in Azure or some other data center that the clients are using. But in any of those cases, it's just that standard internet browser that talks to MetaViewer to participate in workflows or search for documents if you're looking for things. And then to take that a step further, a lot of maybe people on the phone today spend a great deal of their day in Microsoft Dynamics AX. So while you're looking at a transaction in AX, we actually created a button application that installs in AX and allows you to really put a button on any screen that's in AX. And it basically, you can click that button and it feeds us data from that screen and then pops open the matching document to that transaction automatically within a second or two. So really, it makes that person more efficient because we don't want them to have to go open up a MetaViewer browser and rekey the stuff that they're already looking on that screen. They click the button, it pops open, and then displays the matching document. And really why that's important is that document, as it's flowing through workflow, we're tracking who touched it, on what date and time, what did they do with it, did they enter notes, and so you have that whole audit trail history of where that document's been and all those metrics. And so you should know all the information you need to make that document available for payment. In mobile access, we do the system is intelligent enough that if I actually log in with my phone or my tablet, it actually adjusts the view so that it's very easy to display all that information in an easy-to-use manner for that executive on the go or something like that who needs to approve invoices or look for invoices or those types of things. And then lastly, to kind of round out the solution is our vendor view vendor portal. It's an optional component. It's not really part of that initial fast track solution, and we do have some customers who really wanted this vendor view vendor portal. And basically, Mediviewer provides you that great control and visibility to everything inside of your organization. Some organizations want to make a subset of that information available externally to their vendors where they could log into the portal, check the status of their own invoices. If they were a smaller vendor, they can even upload their invoices through that portal. And then Mediviewer keeps AX, Mediviewer, and the vendor view vendor portal all in sync. Any statuses change in any one of those locations, Mediviewer will make sure that the others are all aware of that. So that's what I call the big picture. That kind of concludes my, my presentation. I'll turn it back over to Jason.
All right, thank you, Doug. Thank you, Diana. Great to get a little bit better view there from both of you. So a couple questions have come in, and we'll take those now. I would invite anyone else to enter your questions at this point so we can get to them. Maybe just to start off at a real basic level, a couple of questions have come in that I just want to summarize, and that's the point that that both of your own company solutions are integrated with Dynamics AX, and also there's a question about compatibility with the new Dynamics AX. So maybe I'll give each of you just a chance to take on those two topics. Diana, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, most of our AX customers, at least recently, have really wanted to do a bit of a disconnect model because it's less expensive, I'll just be honest with you, which means that they are wanting to replicate all the tables, the information that's going back and forth between Esker and AX, meaning the supplier master and all the relative information. There is a very easy, very quick option to do that. So the only IT involvement at all is the mapping between what the output of the invoice information is into AX. A lot of organizations are choosing that lately. They haven't decided whether or not they're going to be upgrading anytime soon or not. And they don't want to be dependent on having to bring IT in and to pay money twice. So they're looking for a quick automation solution. And then if they decide to upgrade to the latest AX within the next year or so, they won't have to pay again for it to be fully integrated. So we have multiple options for integration. I'm just letting you know that seems to be the most popular lately because it's not dependent on the AX version. And it's the least expensive and it's the least IT involvement. If you want more information on that type of integration, I would be very happy to talk to you about it and what's involved.
Great. And Doug?
Sure. What was the question?
So there's really a two-part question. One is just confirming that Mediviewer does integrate with Dynamics AX, and do you have a version that is, let me see if I can get the wording here, just compatibility with, or has it been deployed for the new AX, AX7?
Yes. So basically we've been kind of around with the AX all the way back to 2009, 2012, and then with the advent of the release of AX7 here early this year, I think, we do actually have several projects working with the AX7 implementation module. So like I said, the initial release of AX7 is hosted as Azure only, but I think I've kind of heard varying thoughts, but the later in October, I think there maybe will open it up to on-premise types of installations. But kind of as I said in the overview, really where AX solution is located, it doesn't, and where Mediviewer is located, doesn't really make a difference. We've got experience whether they're in the same data center, in separate data centers, or in-house, or in our hosted facility.
Okay. Next question, and it's about licensing. Can you talk at all about how you license these products? And Doug, I'll give you this one first.
Sure. Really, there's three different ways that we implement the solution. The licensing, you're kind of pay for the software as a whole. There's a capital purchase where people will buy the licensing, and then the services that help implement it and teach your people how to use it, and then an annual support, which includes not only being able to get help when you need it, where we can either dial right into your machine and help look at things and adjust them, but support also includes the ability for all future software upgrades at no charge is part of that support contract. So capital purchase would kind of be one of the more common ones over the years. Hosted, whether you use our hosted facility, we have a hosted pricing structure as well. Instead of buying the software licenses, you're actually going to do more of a monthly fee. And then kind of a hybrid of that is we call it subscription on-premise. So if you still want to install the solution in your organization but don't want to capitalize the software and be able to kind of pay as you go, I guess have the more of a monthly fee kind of capability so it matches the the day-to-day operations of the expense to the benefit.
Okay, great. And Diana?
Sure. There are a couple varying models. The most popular model for Esker worldwide, it's 64% of our business is our software as a service model, and that is based on three components. There is a upfront cost. We have a small business package. Then there's an enterprise package for the accounts payable automation. That's for the implementation, the customizations and setup. And then there is a monthly subscription cost with a per document charge. So the beauty of it is, if you're an organization that is, say, only doing 400 invoices a month, you are paying nowhere near someone doing 4,000 invoices a month. It's paid based on use. And then, of course, on the CapEx side, there are on-premise solutions model, which is very similar, and that is paid with a setup implementation. Esker owns its own professional services consulting organization, and that handles the setup. And then, of course, the capacity, which is the license, and that is the volume of invoices that you'll be processing. I think our cloud solution, again, has been the most prevalent because there are no user fees. It's unlimited users, corporate-wide, enterprise-wide.
Okay, great. And we have time for one more question here. I want to just remind folks to be on the lookout for a survey as you depart today. It will give us and our presenters some feedback on how we did, what you thought of today's event and the experience. So if you could just take 15 to 30 seconds to fill that out after you depart today, we would really appreciate it. So our final question for each of you is, do you integrate automatic postings from your solution? And Diana, I'll give this one to you first.
So I think I understand. So can we automatically post from our solution the invoices into AX? And if that is the question, if that's what you're looking for, the answer is yes. So all of that workflow, all of that capture, all of that fantastic audit information and dashboards and all of that is there for you, but once you're ready to post, upon post, it's real-time integration into AX or information available for payment. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, and Doug?
Yeah, it's really kind of up to the clients. I would say most of the time we are not automatically posting. We do feed the transaction up to AX, and then someone goes into AX and completes the transaction from there. But we actually do have a few clients that have wanted us to actually post the documents themselves. So one of the advantages of MetaViewer is that even though that fast track solution that I talked about was kind of this best practices approach to implementing an AP automation solution, it doesn't mean that you have to do it that way. The system is very flexible able to really work with how you want the solution to work. And really, it just helps us get it up and running a lot faster. So when we install the software, we're installing the fast track solution as well. And so then it's immediately talking to your AX system, and all that integration and extraction and capture and workflow is all taken care of. But yes, we can either automatically just upload the transactions and then you complete them from there, or we can post the transaction.
Okay, well, we're going to start wrapping up at this point. Thanks to everyone in the audience for the questions. I do have Diana and Doug's email addresses up here if you want to ask about access to the slides, or if you have any other questions for them, I'm sure they'd be happy to take those. So, Diana, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, and Doug, likewise, great having you on. Thanks for joining us.
Yep, thanks, Jason.
All right, we did record today's event. We'll be making that available as well. Please look for that in the next few days. With that, we're going to wrap up today's event. Have a great day, everyone.